Welcome to Virtual STEAM Teacher. Today we're going to have a look at something that's very similar to Scratch, but slightly different. As far as I can tell, this is a fork of Scratch 3 that's been taken by mBlock and effectively merged with their robotics line. So if you have a look here, we've got Make Code. mBlock you can find on the iPad store. I'm pretty sure it's on the Android store. You can download it. Let's have a quick look. It's in English, it's in multiple languages. Where's the one? There we go, Android, iOS. It works on pretty much everything. So we're going to have a quick look at the web version in a second, but basically it's basically Scratch. So if it's just Scratch, then what's the point of it? And there are two things that are quite nice. If you have a look here, we've got our code with Python, which lets us move again from block-based programming to coding. And I've seen this in a couple of versions of Scratch. But the main thing that I like about mBlock is its hardware support. So we've got our standard sprites, which is slightly different, but I mean, that doesn't really mean much. We've got our backgrounds. If we have a look at our blocks, we've got pretty much the same blocks that we've got in Scratch. We've got some extensions here which let you download some more stuff and do some really cool stuff, but it may or may not be beyond your students. It just depends. So these are to a large degree the same kinds of extensions you can get from Scratch. Not all of them, but largely a lot of them are, but they're just built in, which is quite nice. But here's what I really, really like about this program, and the reason why you might consider using it instead of Scratch in your classroom. You can use a web version with these devices, but you need to install a plugin. And once you've installed the plugin, then, that's new. We'll have a look at that in a second. Once you've installed the plugin, then you can hook up hardware. But what kind of hardware can you have? They've got a whole bunch of programs that they've provided. If you have a look on their store, they're for sale. We've got the Cyber Pi, which is, it's a Raspberry Pi. It lets you connect to a screen and some buttons. But the ones that I've used in early years, you've got Kodi. It's a really nice piece of hardware. It's fairly cheap. It's about $100-ish, maybe a little bit more. It just depends. So this is a robot that's got a screen. We've got some sensors. We've got some movement. We've got mBot, which is even cheaper. The difference being this one here has motor encoders. This one doesn't. So this one here tends to drift to the sides a little bit. If you want something a bit more upmarket, you've got the Ranger, which is sort of like, you've got this one cheap, this one here polished, this one here sort of more towards becoming not quite as good, but a budget version of something like the Vex or the EV3 from Lego. If you don't want to do the Raspberry Pi, you've got the Neuron, which is very similar to an Arduino, which has everything sort of linked together. All the sensors are there, they snap together, you don't have to worry about anything. And we've also got some more advanced stuff. So you've got your Raspberry Pis, you've got your Arduinos. So if you don't want to use their special stuff, you can just use straight Arduino and actually get it to work, which is really cool because you don't have to use their hardware, right? And if you've got the Trello, you can code it through here as well. So you don't have to have a separate program. If you've done this using just the visual programming, you can then use the same program to then start to program hardware. And they've got all of these various things that are all supported by it, which are plugins by various companies, which is really, really cool. So yeah, new. They didn't have the EV3 before. That's quite new. So we've got a whole bunch of different hardware, and it means your students can start off on this thing. They can then move and continue on with it, and they don't have to change. Now, on top of that, you've got the iPad version. Now, the iPad version doesn't support all of these because not all of these have USB support. But ones like Kodi, mBot, Ranger, as well as the Halo, which is their one, the Neuron, these all have Bluetooth. So, or this one has a Bluetooth option. It depends if you get it. If you get the Bluetooth controller for any of these and any of these hardware down here that also support Bluetooth, then you can install the plugins on the iPad and then it supports it as well. So not all of this support is on the iPad version. It's a lot more limited, but you can actually continue to use a lot of these pieces of hardware. Definitely the official ones from mBlock. I'm pretty sure, I'd have to have a look at it. Some of these other ones obviously won't work because they don't support USB, but a few of them did. It's slowly evolving over time. So when you watch this video, it will change and there'll be different hardware supported. But yeah, so you can start off with moving stuff around. And then if we have a look here on our hardware, we can, where is it? When we've got our robot here, we go action, and we can make our robot move forward or move left. So if we go back to events, right, when we click the flags, when Cody starts up, we're going to get Cody to move forwards at 50% power for 1 second. And we can get Cody to make sounds and talk, and we have various options here. But it's exactly the same as when we did this, right? But now we're controlling the robot instead. So you have a really smooth transition from doing animations to then working with devices. And after that, you can also start to do some Python code and get it to work. So worth checking it out. If you've done Scratch and you're sort of wanting to go to the next level, this is what I would recommend. The IDE one here is interesting. This is something to be aware of here. This is them saying you need to install the link for it to work. And it's wanting it in Chinese. So it's done by a Chinese company. By the looks of it, the Python one is still just in Chinese. So we'll skip that one for the moment, but they'll eventually have it translated to English. So if you look down here, you've got all the languages. So hope you've enjoyed that. mBlock is a really nice program to use if you're trying to go beyond Scratch and you're wanting to deal with hardware.